Welcome once again to Cinemaholics, the major motion podcast, where we talk about the biggest and the best films come to theaters and streaming online from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm John Negroni. I'm also the film editor for theyoungfolks.com. And from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he's a news and entertainment writer at Collider. It's Will Ashton. Hey, Will.
Hey.
How's it going?
I'm all right. It's exciting. This is a different thing for us now.
It is?
Things have changed.
Well, I mean, yeah, we watched a movie called Men, and so, I do feel different.
Yeah, you can't walk out of Men being the same person you were when you went into the theater, I'm sure. But, yeah, men? What was that?
Are we still men after watching Men? Not all men.
Are we humans or are we dancers? No, I mean, yeah, so should we talk about what's changed, or do you just want to glaze over that?
What's changed? What's going on, Will? You changed?
I mean, I didn't really change.
You changed your clothes. Okay.
Well, that's true, yeah.
That's good.
Well, I mean, we talked about, I think, in the last episode that you are now married. Mm-hmm. This is your first Cinemaholics as a married man.
I am? Wait, what? What are you talking about, Will?
I mean, there was a whole to-do. There was a big thing that happened.
What?
Where you got, a ring on your finger. And
you okay, Will? Or you're just like making stuff up that didn't happen?
I mean, it all feels like a fever dream. California is a weird place. I went there for the first time this week. That's where
you went to California? How come you didn't hit me up?
I don't know. It was an oversight on my part, I'll admit. But yeah, no, I mean, that was... So Men does, I mean, for whatever we'll say about it, does have the distinction of being the first film I've ever seen in the state of California. So
if you're wondering, like, oh, is John gaslighting Will right now? That is true. That is what I'm doing. Yeah. You know why I'm doing that? Because I watched Men, the new film by Alex Garland, and that movie taught me that it's okay to gaslight people.
Yeah, that was
and
a
to
big
be toxic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a big takeaway of the film. Yeah, for sure.
It was. And I was like, oh, I understand now, Alex Garland. Thank you for teaching me that. I'm going to start applying this from now on to everybody. So, I mean, so far so good.
I thought the message of the film was just that men contain multitudes, and that that they're just full of character.
I thought the message of the film was yes, all men. That was my takeaway. No, I'm married now. I got married, and Will, you went to California for the first time, and we met in real life for the first time. We've been podcasting and we've been buddies for years, since 2016, and this was the first time you and I hung out, and it was cool shit. I had a good time.
Yeah, I had a good time too. Yeah, it's just different now. We've seen each other in the flesh.
There's more camaraderie there, I think. I don't know. Like now I can like gaslight you without consequences.
Now you know my weaknesses and my flaws.
Yeah. Well, you did hand me that list of all your fears, so I did think that was strange. But
I mean, that was probably a mistake on my part. But I was drinking at the wedding, so maybe that was
were.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I didn't see you drinking that much. Now, we could talk for hours about the wedding, and it was super fun. Maybe we should do a little segment after our review of Men for the listeners who want to hear more about it. We could talk about how because I want to ask you some questions. Make sure you had a good time on the trip.
Okay.
I still haven't chatted your ear off about some of the stuff you got up to while I was on my mini honeymoon. So we should tantalize the listeners with that.
Okay, yeah, if that's of interest, stay tuned.
It might be. I'm sure there are like 4 people who want to know, and those 4 people are Corey Woodruff and Charlie Richardson. But no, let's do that at the after this Men review. I imagine this Men review is not going to take a ton of time, because I feel like I have a pretty conclusive opinion on this movie, and I definitely am ready to recap it and contextualize it for the listeners. But actually, you know what? Before we even talk about Men, there was another movie we're hoping to talk about pretty soon. We have Top Gun Maverick coming out this weekend. That's going to be the big review next week, obviously. We also had the Bob's Burgers movies hit theaters. We also had something that hit Disney Plus, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers.
Yeah, well,
and both are supposed to be pretty good. I haven't seen either yet.
Bob's Burgers hasn't come out yet, right?
I thought, that comes out tomorrow. Sorry, the screening happened for it, so I missed the screening. But I heard it's quite good because critics saw it last week. Yeah. It might have opened in some theaters, maybe. I don't know, actually, last week since it screens so early.
So I feel like if it had opened, I probably would have seen it at your San Francisco Alamo Draft House.
Well, you went to the Castro, but we'll talk about that later.
I was going to talk about that in a bit, but I did go to the Castro.
I heard the Bob's Burgers movies is really, really good. Really fun. I'm not the biggest Bob's Burgers fan. I watched like the first 2 seasons, like this is a cool show, and then I never watched it again. And that was like 7-8 years ago. Can't believe it's still running.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I never was. I'm similar to you, where it's like I never really got the hook of it. I guess like it never hit me as hard as some people.
Well, he's Bob.
did.
And he has burgers.
Yeah, but no, but I mean like there is something about like I think people like on the spectrum and stuff tend to like the show a lot, particularly with the character of Tina.
With Tina?
Yeah, and well, just in general, like,
highlight, sure.
Well, not only with Tina, but just in general, like the way like the characters like deal with like social etiquette and just like misbehavior and stuff.
Yeah,
I just know
it's a show that celebrates weirdos. The
Right.
person who's a little, the differences in all of us.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I think I've tried to like give it more. I've really only seen from the first season or so. I've seen kind of scattered episodes throughout, but I enjoy the show. I mean, I do like it. Good. I guess can't really say I'm like a fan or a super fan or anything. I'm more of a casual admirer of the show.
I'm a fan of Sam Cedar, and he's on the show too. And, it's just, I feel like it's one of those shows that's probably aged pretty all right. Like if I ever had time, I'd get into it more. But that's going to be hitting theaters along with Top Gun Maverick. The other movie I mentioned was Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. Now, this is a show that like when the screeners started hitting, I was like, oh, that's interesting. The screeners were coming a little earlier than anticipated. And, I was chatting with some people who had seen it, with the last couple of weeks. Who were like, you know what, this thing's actually really solid. Like this is a pretty funny, kind of like goofy movie, very fun Disney Plus exclusive.
Oh, John, a goofy movie is a different Disney film.
I'm so sorry.
Oh
my goodness.
Yeah, there's a goofy movie and then there's an extremely
I mix it up all the time.
Movie. Yeah. Extremely goofy movie, first college film I ever saw. I don't know about you, but
can't say that's the case. I'm a little bit older. I think by then I'd already moved on. I was like watching American Pie and all that stuff.
I see.
The sequel.
Yeah, the second one I think is in college. The first one's in high school. Yeah.
But that's fine. Goofy movie, extremely goofy movie, all classics. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. Apparently, it's a new. It's pretty fun. It's like an homage to like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but with Chip and Dale. And apparently John Mulaney and Andy Samberg voice the characters, and it's a lot of fun. So Will, if we have time, I want to squeeze that one in and hopefully talk about it on a future episode of the show.
I would like to as well. Yeah, I was. We thought about doing it for this one. I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Flew. Yeah. I'm surprised you're doing this right now.
Yeah, if I had known we were covering it, I probably would have seen. I had a layover in Las Vegas. I might have watched it.
You were too busy at those slot machines, I bet.
I did go to the slot machine. They have slot machines in the airport.
Of course they do.
I don't know if have you been to the Las Vegas airport?
No, I've never been to Vegas.
Okay, well I didn't. I thought about venturing out, but like for one, like I had just been traveling the past few days, and I was like, I don't really want to like go out, and I didn't really want to spend more money. I didn't want to be tempted to like lose money, so I was just like, I'm just gonna stay here. But I did play. I mean, they have slot machines in the airport, and they're kind of fun. There's a Dune one. I don't know if you've seen that, the Dune slot machine.
I can't say I'm a connoisseur of slot machines.
Sure.
But okay.
Sure.
I do want to. By the way, I do want to point out RRR, one of our favorites of the year at this point, on Netflix. So people can check it out. And I remember we brought that up because I thought people might be able to watch it while traveling and everything like that. But I bring that up because I'm curious. Did you watch anything on the plane or were you too busy reading books?
No, well, yeah, when I flew into California, I was reading your novel Killer Joy, which I'd been
nice. You're reading what I wrote.
Been meaning to read for a while. I didn't really read much on the way back because I was just really tired. What was that?
I said 5 years.
Yeah, it took me a bit. But yeah, no, I was reading that on the way there, and then on the way back, I didn't read much of anything because I was just really tired. But no, I was hoping they'd have in-flight options, but I think my flights were too short to provide that. But if I had known, I probably would have downloaded something on my phone or something and watched a movie. But
right on.
Alas, I did not do that.
And last thing, the Cannes Film Festival has been going on, and I haven't been keeping up. I've been, plugged out of the film world. I haven't really been keeping up. I know, I've heard things like vaguely Crimes of the Future, 3,000 Years of Longing. I think there was. There are a bunch of things, and Cannes is still ongoing. I'm hoping, you and I have talked about possibly doing something fun, like a Cannes episode with somebody who attended, because apparently there are some movies that came out at Cannes that are like quite good. I'm hearing good things about EO and All That Breeze more than ever. Plenty of films that might be worth looking into.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, certainly. I think any year at the Cannes Film Festival tends to produce notable films. I mean, last year, a few of our favorites premiered at Cannes, Red Rocket and Worst Person in the World, for instance. Mm-hmm. I'm hearing Decision to Leave is really good. That's a new Park Chan-wook film.
I haven't heard of that one.
There, I heard Triangle of Sadness is pretty good. I've heard mixed but generally positive things about 3,000 Years of Longing. Which
definitely
mentioned.
Mixed. Yeah. There's also more than Harka. That was another one I wanted to bring up too. Harka and Funny Pages.
I don't know about Harka. I have heard about Funny Pages.
I want to see it all. I want to watch all these movies. Why aren't we in France? Why did you go to California? We should have met up in France. I would have gotten married there. It would have been great.
Oui. Yeah, no, we didn't. I don't know. I mean, there was one year I almost went to Cannes. I think I got accepted, but I didn't know how to get there.
You didn't pronounce it right, and they got upset. Yeah. So they were like,
sorry, you're not allowed. They revoked
It's just so funny to me. I've told you how to pronounce Cannes. It's literally either Cannes or Cannes, and you always have to do it wrong, and it's like you're doing it on purpose. You're just like, I'm never going to do it. Sorry.
So it's the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah. I've heard you could say it Cannes or you can say Cannes, but you don't pronounce the S. That's the thing.
Did you hear about Sick of Myself?
Yeah.
I've heard that one's pretty good. That's from the producers of Worst Person in the World, and I think it's a star of Ninja Baby.
I saw some I've been a little plugged out, so I've only caught like some like tweets and stuff, and I've been seeing what people are logging on our favorite website, letterboxd.com. So I want to see that. I want to see it all, like I said. I heard like the only movie I heard that was pretty bad was the new Marion Cotillard, Brother and Sister. Apparently, that's a big no from the folks at Cannes, but I don't know
who made that.
That's a nod Despletion. I think that pronounced it a nod Despletion, something like that. The guy who did Deception, which also wasn't received super well. Yeah, I didn't see it.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll see.
Well,
we'll see.
That's a shame. I mean, I haven't heard as many like outright raves, I think, this year, but I haven't heard as many people be critical of the films compared to years
We
past.
should be critical of a film right now. We should talk about this movie, Men.
Sure.
Men, directed by Alex Garland, his third film. Alex Garland has made 2 films before this and a TV show called Devs. I never watched Devs. Did you ever get into that one?
No, I wanted to.
Me too.
Matt Serafini was a big fan of it. I wanted to watch it. It's just one of those things where there's too much TV. Man, like it was
a 2020 thing, wasn't it? That was the thing. Yeah. I remember it came out around the time. I think I was in the middle of watching a bunch of stuff at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was certainly one. I remember when it premiered, I was like, oh, I gotta watch that. And then the weeks passed, then the months passed, and eventually the years passed, and I just never got around to it.
Yeah.
And then when people were talking about Men, I had forgotten about it entirely. And then people were like, "Oh, did you ever see Devs?" And I was like, "No, I meant to. I just never got around to it." I heard it's pretty good, but didn't really move the needle too much, I guess.
Sure. Alex Garland, interesting guy. He's also written 3 novels, but he wrote them in the late 90s and early 2000s. Moved on, of course, to start directing films. He wrote the screenplay for 28 Days Later. I believe that was his first screenplay, if I'm not mistaken. And he kept on going. He eventually would go on to do a screenplay for the film adaptation of Halo, which never happened. He had a bit of a false start there. He did write for Sunshine and a few other things. I had a bit of a relationship with Danny Boyle with that respect. He also wrote Never Let Me Go, which I don't know if you're a fan of that one. I think I saw that in the theater. So I don't know unless I'm confusing it with something else, but that's that Keira Knightley film, right? With Carey Mulligan.
Yeah. Andrew Garfield's in it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I remember it being all right. I meant to read the book, which I've heard is significantly better.
Well, I think,
yeah.
I think the thing that kind of pushed Garland into the opportunity he had with Ex Machina in 2014, arguably, was when he wrote the script for Dread. Because Dread, I think that was a film that like people didn't expect to be as good as it was, as in terms of being just a really, really solid action movie. It wasn't long after that movie came out that Garland did Ex Machina, which came out 2015, not 2014.
Yes.
Directed the film, it was his debut, and he wrote the screenplay.
I think it didn't premiere in 2014 and then came out in the United States.
Yeah, maybe so. Yeah, maybe it hit the festivals. And then, because I remember I saw it in 2015 in theaters, but...
Yeah, no, I remember it was one of the last movies I saw before I graduated from college. I remember that quite vividly.
Right. So the film, which also it got nominated for Best Original Screenplay. In a lot of the ways, it really helped kickstart Alicia Vikander's career at that point. I mean, she had been, in some French films before that, but this was like what kind of launched her into bigger star status. Obviously, a great movie for Donald Gleason and Oscar Isaac. I think Oscar Isaac was still kind of on the precipice of breaking out at that point.
Certainly because Star Wars was that same year. It was also 2015,
right.
And it was like just before that. And so, I mean, obviously before that was also like Inside Llewyn Davis and a few other notable films of his. So he was on the rise, and then Star Wars was like kind of pushed him into stardom.
This film and Star Wars, they were kind of two handers in that respect for Isaac's profile, like really becoming closer to being like more the A-lister that he is now. I mean, how else would he have been cast as Apocalypse in X-Men Apocalypse? Who knows?
Right. But but Vikander, I remember it was one of those things where I don't think she was nominated for Ex Machina, but she was nominated for The Danish Girl and won for that film. But everyone was just kind of like, yeah, technically it's for The Danish Girl, but we're giving it to you pretty much for Ex Machina. Like that's like the real winner. I don't know if that was their thinking, but in my view, like that justified the win. I was like, if you can in your head canon pretend it's for Ex Machina, it's an all right win.
I mean, I still think her best performance is probably Green Knight, but obviously pretty subjective. Now, Garland would go on to direct another film, Annihilation, which was bigger budget, bigger scope, even more actors, more A-list actors. That was a 2018 film that we discussed on Cinemaholics just a year into doing this show. And this one was based on a sci-fi novel also called Annihilation. And apparently, like, he really like expanded where the novel went. This one also had, it didn't really star Oscar Isaac, like he was in it, but it really starred Natalie Portman. If I recall, I think Tessa Thompson, Gina Rodriguez, maybe a few other people that I'm forgetting. Benedict Wong was in it as well. And Annihilation was a little bit more divisive, I want to say. Like, I feel like Annihilation was also like somewhat divisive, but I think everybody was basically like Ex Machina, good film, interesting subject matter. Annihilation, people were a little bit more mixed, but also like it had really big fans. Like I was a big fan of Annihilation. I thought the film was fantastic. Yeah,
I was quite taken by. I think I liked Ex Machina a little bit more, just because Ex Machina had like
Same.
It had more of a nifty quality to it, because that was another thing where
the production design really owned in that movie.
Production design and the special effects, which it won an Oscar for. I don't remember exactly how much it cost to make. I want to say less than 10 million, but it's like the type of film where I know that the special effects look like 2 or 3 times the actual budget of the film. Like they were really smart and really economical with how they used effects, especially for a first time director like Alex Garland.
Yeah. Budget was $15 million.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, because it looks like at least 30. Like they were really smart with how they did the special effects.
Agreed.
In that film. Yeah. But I mean, Annihilation, I think it was a critical darling. I think releasing it wide was, it was one of those things where it was in that phase where Paramount was just like, we'll greenlight things like Mother. We'll greenlight things like Downsizing. We'll greenlight things like, Annihilation. And it's like, well, when they hit, they really hit. But I mean, from a wide audience perspective, these are not going to really, win the favors of a wide audience. So I can see why those movies didn't really earn their keep. But, I'm glad they got made at least.
Annihilation had a really cool, it had a really good mood to it. Ex Machina did as well, but Annihilation had the Nightmare Bear. It had this like really spellbinding third act that I thought was really profound. But of course, it was a bit of an A24 film hiding in a Paramount distributed film. And so it makes sense to me then that Alex Garland is back, 4 years later, he's back at A24 because Ex Machina was A24. And it's a movie called Men, and Men is very, very, very different from those two films. It's very different from what I can tell compared to Devs as well, and 28 Days Later and Dread, and because Alex Garland has really solidified himself as a sci-fi guy, right? And this is very much kind of a psychological folk horror kind of film, very, very more paranoia and things like that. It is starring an A24 darling as well, Jessie Buckley. I don't even know if she's been in an A24 film, but if she hasn't, I mean, it was a matter of time. It's Jessie Buckley. I would say that she's right now the queen of indie films. She's kind of taken over from Florence Pugh, who went full Black Widow. But Jessie Buckley is popping up in a lot of projects these days, and she's really rising in terms of her, just being that person that is extremely reliable in a pinch as a performer to lead a small budget film, but do it with a very big performance. The film also stars Rory Kinnear, and Rory Kinnear, who plays multiple parts in this. Now, I still haven't seen the trailer for this movie. I'm not sure how much the trailer sort of gives away, but really to set the stage for what this movie is, we're going to give away some things that aren't immediately obvious when you're watching this movie. So if you're interested and you're like, well, you know what, I want to see the movie first. And I have a feeling most people who are going to be listening to this have seen the movie. This is very much one of those movies where you watch it and you hunt down conversations about the movie because you're like, what in the world did I just watch? I think that is very much going to be the case for a lot of people checking out this show. So that's my little bit of a warning, although even though I understand that a lot of you are coming into this wanting a little bit of that context. So we're just going to get into it from here. So Will Ashton, as I said before, folk horror kind of movie. And basically the plot is that we have Jessie Buckley, who is a recently widowed young woman, and she's going on a bit of a holiday in the English countryside. But she's having some problems. She's having some problems with a lot of the men in the community, and every single one seems to have the same face. This is a kind of an allegorical movie. Lots of metaphor in this, a lot of playfulness, a lot of moodiness and atmosphere. And I'm gonna start with this. I'm gonna say I think that this movie is decisively weak. Despite having, it has a lot to say. I don't think it says any of it all that well. And I was reading a few of the reviews, in preparation for this, because I've been stewing on this movie for a couple of weeks. I was really trying to identify what is it about this movie that just did not work for me, right? It's a movie that's not something I didn't find the message of it wrong or anything. Like I watched the movie and I thought it was saying things that I thought were interesting and worth debating. But I think the review that was for the young folks, we got from Katie Stetzel, and she wrote something that I think really nailed it. I think she really captured it. And the main problem I think with this movie is that the perspective of the main character, Jessie Buckley, is just not there. I feel like it's a movie that's all about how Alex Garland sees the subtext, and it's not about how she sees it. The main character. Curious what you might think of that, Will, but I'll ask you point blank, generally speaking, what did you think of Men?
So in the interest of fairness, I'll say that, so I saw this movie the day after your wedding at that Regal Cinema in Dublin, California.
Joyful celebration, and then you went to see Men.
Yeah. I was like, I knew I was going to kind of take it easy after the wedding. Not that, like we said, I didn't go too hard, but I was living 3 hours in the future in California. At any time it was like, 10, it was like 1 or 2 for me or whatever. So, we wrapped things up at 1 a.m., which might as well have been 4 a.m. for me. So I woke up on Saturday being like, I have like more energy than anticipated, going about the day, checking things out, returning the suit, all that stuff. And I go to the cinema and I'm taken by the place. It's like, this is a really cool theater. It's really nice. I saw the Minions pinball machine, but I didn't hold it against the theater. And then, I went to see Men. I was like, man, these seats are comfy. And that kind of played to my disadvantage because I'll admit during the first half or so of the film, I was kind of dozing in and out, not by choice, but just because I think this is a kind of slow burn, meant to be moody, meditative film. So maybe I didn't have the right energy or, mentality going into this. So I apologize that brings my perspective to a fault. But I will say that I feel like I was watching the movie and I kept being like, okay, like when is this really gonna like take off? When is this going to be like past the setup of it, get to the premise? And then the end happens and it's like, okay, did I fall asleep during like the major events of the film? Did I miss something major? And I went on Wikipedia and I read the whole synopsis. I looked at other reviews and I was like, no, that's basically it. Like, I mean, maybe I missed like something here or there, but like the thrust of the film is almost decisively kind of simplistic in a way that I almost sort of admire from Alex Garland, in that it seems like we said, like he made these bigger projects. He made Devs, this whole giant miniseries. He made Annihilation, his biggest film as a director to date. It does seem like he wanted to scale back, make something a little bit smaller, concept heavy, but also character focused. But the problem is, like you said, the concept itself is so literal and so thuddingly obvious that there's really not a lot of room for subtext or for, you know, additional thought. There's not really a lot of room for analysis or anything to like really dive deeper into the concept. It's all made pretty apparent and pretty clear to the point where you can't really like argue what it all means, because it's all meant to be fairly like intentionally a sort of biblical allegory. And I think that's where the comparisons to Mother, Darren Aronofsky's film, come into play, because that's another film
which does biblical allegory so much better than this.
Well, not only does it do it better, but that movie, I think, has more layers to it. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but I feel like there is something very sort of autobiographical about that film. Like, I feel like I get more of a look into Darren Aronofsky's life. And even though Jennifer Lawrence's character in that film isn't super fleshed out, there's so many depths to like what that film is saying about author and authorship that I find it such a fascinating film. Whereas with this film, I just don't really get the sense that I'm getting a lot of Garland's perspective here. I feel like it's kind of like through a tunnel in its own way. Like, I feel like I'm getting the basis of what it is, but I'm not getting a lot of him in the process. Like, it felt very much like he wrote an outline for a film, like a first draft, and then just never really advanced beyond that. Like, he never fleshed out the idea. He never really fleshed out the concept more than just the concept at hand. And so the premise, while interesting, isn't really given a lot of room to thrive or grow. And while maybe that could have been interesting as far as like scaling things back and focusing on one central location and two central characters, or at least two central actors, I just felt like the movie never really found that developing, growing potential. And it's also hurt by the fact, like you said, I feel like Jessie Buckley's character is someone who is defined by her trauma, but never really defined as who she is as a person beyond that. Like, it's just, we know this horrible thing that happened to her, but we never really get to know much about her otherwise. She kind of just goes through the film. We know that, but we just don't really get to know her or get to see a lot of the depths of her character. And while Jessie Buckley does what she can to develop the character, she can only do so much with a script that is sorely under-servicing her.
I do think this is one of those cases, it happens too often, where it's a premise that's only it's too thin for a feature-length film. If you have a short film with this same kind of anomalisa sort of setup, where, you know, you really fixate on the idea of like, she's literally being stalked, her life is being endangered by a man, but then all the other men who could do something about it all look like him, you know, like there's something there. It's just when you try to stretch that out to a movie, that's sort of what happens. It's just like, well, when is the movie going to take off, like you said? And especially when it comes to that whole thing about Mother, like the way I would figure it is there's a whole scene in this where like clearly they're trying to like, you know, Garland is trying to ape the whole like Adam and Eve thing, right? Where she's plucking the apple from the garden. But then there's nothing, like you said, there's no layer to it. There's no sort of like, okay, this happens. And then you get the point where Garland is like, now here's what I'm trying to say. In Mother, what you would have, like if Aronofsky had done that same sort of thing, he probably would have had Jennifer Lawrence like pluck the apple from the tree and then like throw it at a wall and it explodes into blood or something. You know what I mean? It was just like, there'd be more to it. There'd be something kind of memorable and something sort of like, I don't know, at least presiding around something profound, rather than just being like, or here it is, a metaphor.
or even something provocative or something that would be kind of taboo. I feel like this movie is just
by the time this movie gets provocative, it's like it stretches for so long it loses all impact.
Yeah, I mean, by that point, you're just kind of just like, okay, at least just something's happening now. Like, right. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I just like, but I don't know. I mean, like, it's a weird thing where it feels like we're getting to this point with A24 films. And generally, I think you and I like most of them. But there is a set in-house style now. And I feel like it is getting to the point of parody or near parody where if a film like this doesn't really develop beyond the premise and the cool visuals and the moody score and, you know, the accomplished performances, then it just feels like it's kind of playing into the in-house style to a fault. Like, it doesn't feel like it's really like becoming more than just a sort of stock by the numbers A24 film. And I feel like this is the closest we come to like an A24 film that almost feels like a parody of an A24 film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I'm hearing is then Marcel the Shell with shoes on. I assume that means Rory Kinnear is going to be in that movie, giving birth to himself. We'll see. Yeah, I gotta say, I think this is just one of those movies that just it could have been so much more than it is. When it comes down to it, it's just not a movie that is all that gripping, and it has 2 or 3 standout scenes, but then a lot of filler in between, a lot of predictable stuff in between. The horror thriller elements that they try to really push in there, especially toward the end, they're just not that interesting to watch. I mean, the movie is so loose with physics and what reality is because it's trying to be profound that it all that tension just gets sucked out. There is no tension in this movie, really. You're just kind of waiting for the movie to get to whatever destination it wants to get to. And yeah, I think that sure, it's a movie that will provoke, I guess, some interesting discussion, but certainly not on the merits. Like I feel like a lot of this stuff is really fundamental basics when it comes to like gaslighting and, you know, men being men and stuff like that. It's like I feel like other movies have been a little bit more avant-garde, a little bit more surprising, and a little bit more anti-formula in that sort of storytelling, you know, finding ways to do it in a way that, you know, isn't just so in your face that you're just like, okay, I get it. I mean, you know, in a way that where the movie doesn't feel like a sermon and it feels more instructive in the way that cinema can be. So yeah, this thing, I think this thing is pretty flat and a big old miss from Alex Garland, but you know what? That's okay. Because clearly this was not, I think it's clear to me that this isn't like his wheelhouse. I think that like the guy is certainly extremely talented, has proved himself many, many times. Just, you know, I think he was due for something a little bit weaker. But do you think Garland's good? I feel like he's still going to get work. He's still going to do well. I mean, it's not like this movie is like cratering, right? I mean, it's only made $3 million at the box office, but I think that was always expected.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine the budget was too high for it, but I do think A24 had some higher hopes for this film. I think they gave it a wider release than they gave some of their previous films. Yeah,
it's weird. He's doing another film, by the way, called Civil War. They're filming it right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's directing it?
He's directing it, writing it.
Because I thought I read, I mean, I didn't get the article. I didn't get to read the article, but I thought he said in like New York Times that he was thinking about winding down shortly after this film, which would also make me disappointed this was his last film. So I hope at least that Civil War proves to be a little bit better.
It's another A24 film, and it's got Kirsten Dunst. It could be good. I hope that it is.
Oh, okay. Well, then sign me up. I'm excited for that.
I'm putting you on the list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hoping this is a fluke. I just have a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that he wrote this film. I can see his directorial influence, but I just don't really see the Garland that I feel like his other projects were. I mean, I haven't read his novels, but it just seems like he, as a writer, really puts a lot of thought into developing concepts, really letting them flourish and expand. And I don't know if this is just more of a challenge to scale things back or to do something that was a little bit more modest in scope, but it just feels like he just never really found, you know, the thing that makes this movie tick. Like, it never really found the thing that brings it to life. I think he had that image like for the climax in mind, and I think he had that, and he had ideas where we could lead to that image, but it never really developed past there. It's a film that doesn't really have much of a second act. It just has like a really, really long first act, then a kind of truncated second act, and then, you know, kind of a flimsy third act, and then it's over.
The structure, like I said, it's structured too much like a short film.
Yeah, I mean, there's a weird sort of like film school equality to the screenplay and the structure of it, where it's like, it's like if you presented this, it's like, okay, you have an interesting idea here, but we need to kind of expand upon it. You don't have this, you don't have that. And so for someone who's experienced filmmaker at this point, like Alex Garland, I just find it kind of baffling that he produces. But I don't know, maybe he just like went to A24 and was just like, I have this idea for a movie, and they're like, great, can you film it this fall? It's like, I didn't even start writing. It's like, well,
here's $20,
right?
Make it.
Well, here's like 10 million. If you can get this in the can by next year, you got a movie. It's like, all right, let's figure it out.
Yeah, and I also think, when it comes to like Alex Garland's movies, like they always feature female protagonists, right? At least in terms of like the last two. Even though Ex Machina, in a way, she's sort of like the surprise protagonist. You think that it's Donald Gleason, but no, it ends up being the Alicia Vikander, right?
I think all of his directorial efforts have had female protagonists.
Right. So all three of these movies, and I don't know about Devs. That's the only thing.
And Devs, yeah. I was going to say, I think Devs as well.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that one. And then, his next film is too. And I do think there's something to say about how he seems to be very interested in the dynamic between men and women. And I think that was probably the big disappointment for me with this movie, is that, this felt like it could have been like really pushing or evolving past that. But his last two movies were much more interesting in that respect. I feel like he said he had more profound things to say about that dynamic in Ex Machina, extremely so. And and then this is definitely also one of those movies where I think there were some people who were looking forward to it because they're like, oh, it's polarizing. Oh, that means it's going to be interesting. And unfortunately, I feel like it's more polarizing in the way, like you said, like a way that like a film school student's movie is polarizing, not because it's interesting, but because like we were all sort of like fighting and disagreeing about something that's just not very good. But I know some people are going to bat for this. We're not. It's not getting super low grades or anything, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't want to disparage anyone who is liking the film or getting a lot out of it or found themselves having a profound experience watching the film. But there is sort of like an emperor has new clothes situation going on here. Well, I feel like there's just not a lot like on the surface. Like it just a kind of threadbare film, and seeing some of these reviews are kind of fascinating because it's just like, did you just write this review in advance? Like, did you just kind of assume that this is what the movie was? Because I feel like what you're seeing in the film isn't really there outside of just like kind of being a superficial examination. Like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to take away from anyone's appreciation or enjoyment of the film, but just kind of feels like it feels strange to me that some people at least are getting such a resonant experience from this film.
Since we are being pretty negative and we haven't sort of given the impression, right, that it's, everybody thinks it's negative. That's not the case. I did take a quick peek at my letterbox to see who likes this movie a bit more, want to give their perspective. One review here from Win Lei, who is one of our friends of the show. I hope to have him on someday. But he liked the film a lot more than we did. He gave it 4 stars, and he said it's a disquieting and vivid spell of loss. He said clarity for her, sympathy for him, that sees Alex Garland's painting of haunting enigmas as its most grounded and confrontational. Also in this hat trick, he has arguably conceived the softer spoken version of Darren Aronofsky's Mother. So he liked it quite a bit more than we did. He compares it to like Spirited Away and things like that. You can find him on Letterboxd and check out his reviews. He's written for the young folks in other places, but there are some people who are into this. We shouldn't be dismissive. But Kimber Myers is also a fan of the film, although I haven't come across her review for it. I don't know if she's written one yet. So yeah, Men has fans. Some people like Men. What are you gonna do? Well,
there's somebody for everybody, I guess.
there's a Men for everyone. Let's play the Rotten Tomatoes game. Now, this film just came out in the theaters this past weekend, and we are doing this episode a bit late because, wedding travels and all that stuff. So we've critics have had some time. They've logged their reviews, but we only have 165 reviews counted. So a little bit lower than the usual, but for an A24 horror indie, I guess that's not too surprising. But Will, what do you think the critic score is out of 165 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes? What's your guess?
I'm going to say it's probably favorable, but on the lower side of things. So I'm going to say 65%.
You're off by 10. Do you think it's 55 or 75?
I'm going to say it's probably 75.
Good guess. Yeah, it's 75%. A bit higher than I was expecting. It's certified fresh, which I was not expecting. I was expecting this to be in the 60s, similar to you. So that is interesting. But what about the audience score, Will Ash? We have 250 plus verified ratings. What do you think?
Boy, it's got to be like 53% or something.
53%? It is 42%. Even lower.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's not surprising at all. I actually haven't checked to see if this has a cinema score. You were just in Vegas, so I assume you went to the... you gave the folks there.
I didn't want to hedge my bets, I guess.
Yeah.
But, if I had ventured out, I probably would have been like, hailed a taxi, and they're like, where are you going, sport? And it's like, to the cinema score office, please. Like,
and
right
make
on
it
the
snappy.
Yeah, make it snappy. Yeah.
All right. Well, there is a cinema score. I'm looking at it now. What do you think it is?
Oh, wait. I might have heard this one already, because I remember everyone was going about like saying, oh, it's going to be a guaranteed F cinema score. Like, this is the next F cinema score in the making, because, Mother.
Last one was Mother, right? Or there might have been another one that I forgot about.
But I remember hearing that this got like, it got a low cinema score, but not that low. I think it got like a D or something.
A D plus. So yeah, higher than the F, because I think it goes down to D minus, doesn't it, before you get to F?
I think.
And then,
I think that just kind of speaks to the inadequacy of this film in a way. Like, it's not even bold enough to get an F from cinema score. Like, it's not
if
even.
If it got the F, yeah, we'd be praising it all day.
It's not even like taboo enough to really warrant the F. It's just like, like even cinema scores, it's like, well, you don't like it, but like we can't get mad at it because there's just not a lot there.
Yeah,
it's just like, yeah.
All right. Well, then, what do you think the average Letterboxd rating is? This has been logged 30,000 times. That's a lot more than I was expecting. Usually, we, for movies of this scale, we'll usually see like between like maybe 10 to 15,000. This is double that. What do you think?
3.2.
Really close, 3.1.
Oh, that was my second guess.
Okay. Well, I'm not surprised. Yeah. That makes sense to me. I feel like the Letterboxd crowd is going to probably be more favorable on an A24 film from Alex Garland. I mean, sure. And that's right in the center. I think that does kind of capture where this movie's at for people.
For Letterboxd, for an A24 film on Letterboxd, that's pretty low.
I guess so. I'd have to do like a kind of a comparison game, but I don't know what to expect anymore from Letterboxd. I feel like it is kind of swelling into being a little bit more diverse and interesting in terms of like the range of opinions. It doesn't feel as much of like a hive like it used to. Oh, and I also forgot to mention Abiel Jessie, former host of the show, gave it a positive rating on Rotten Tomatoes for The Pitch. So another friend of men.
I would have been curious to hear her perspective on the film if she was available to speak with us, but alas, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll come around to it. I don't know. Like I said, maybe if I saw it with the fresh, awoken eyes, I'd be like, "Oh man, I really undersold this film when we first saw it." But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it was my expectations. Maybe it's the film itself. I don't know. I mean,
your expectations, because I feel like I kind of prepped you for not liking, because I told you I really didn't like it. Is that what made you excited? You were like, oh.
No. I think it was what you were saying before, where it's like people were comparing it to Mother. It was getting such divisive responses. Like I was like, well, maybe if it's not good, at least it's something. And I think that's where my disappointment is, that like it's just not really much of anything. It's just,
right. I gotcha. Yeah.
That to me, like if it was a huge mess, I would have been like, whoa, okay, at least like I can at least appreciate what this movie is doing if it, dropped the ball in such a spectacular fashion. But it's sadly just kind of mediocre to me. It's not even like an interesting flop. It's just kind of like, it just didn't really come together.
Just took a quick look at Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm seeing Chris Evangelista gave it a pretty positive rating for Slash Film. Clint Worthington, also a friend of the show, gave it a pretty positive rating. May Abdelbaki. You know what? This movie has its fans. If you're a little bit, like, I don't know what's, if you haven't seen the movie yet, definitely seek out those. This might be the movie for you. It just didn't work for us. But I guess that's a call for us to move on. Okay, so like we mentioned earlier in the show, we're going to be talking about Top Gun Maverick on the next episode of Cinemaholics. But real quick before we head out here, Will Ashton, you were just in California.
Yeah, for the first time.
And we met up, and you went to my wedding. You were one of my groomsmen. Thank you again for filling in, because my best man couldn't make it because he got COVID, and so I at the last minute I called upon Will Ashton, and you showed up, and I feel like we had a good time. Did you have a good time in California? What happened?
I did, yeah. So I was there for about a week. Most of it was devoted to the wedding, like you said. I mean, kind of meeting you, and then preparing for the wedding, actually going to the wedding, and recovering from the wedding.
We took some time considering how much we
but yeah, I mean, I was kind of off of the beaten path of San Francisco. I was kind of closer to the Pleasanton area, so
the East Bay. A little bit east of Oakland, California.
So I only really got to spend one day in San Francisco proper, and then I had spent like one day in Oakland just to kind of check that out. But I wish I had a little bit more time to explore the area, but I certainly had a nice time visiting the sites. Yeah,
you went to one of my favorite theaters of all time, the Castro Theater.
Yeah, that was
San Francisco. You went on Harvey Milk Day, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was a pretty amazing experience, because I went. Because you were telling me about things to do, and I looked up the Castro Theater, and I was like, oh yeah, I've been meaning to check that place out for a while, because I knew I would check out one of the independent theaters in San Francisco, but I wasn't sure which one. But I saw that, and then I saw they were playing The Times of Harvey Milk, the Oscar-winning documentary about Harvey Milk, and it was like, hey, we're showing it for free for Harvey Milk Day, and I was like, oh man, like Harvey Milk Day, I'm gonna be going to San Francisco on Harvey Milk Day. That'd be like coming to Pittsburgh on Fred Rogers Day. It's like
right, and in the Castro, which this is like Pride Central. Like this is like lots of gay bars. This is where the Pride Parade kind of like really centers.
A lot of weed, a lot of fun eateries in the area.
It's a must destination wise for San Francisco. It's just a beautiful, welcoming place full of just like super fun and exciting things always going on. There's always something fun to do in the Castro, and the theater is truly like the epicenter of that for me. This is where I saw Last Black Man in San Francisco, Sorry to Bother You. I have so many memories of that theater. That's where I saw the 25th anniversary of Toy Story. I mean, my goodness, it's just so many fond memories I have, and it's a gorgeous theater. I mean, it's like it's like a castle.
Well, yeah, because it has I think they call it a leatherette roof, which is the last of its kind. I think it's a very last leatherette roof, where the leather they use to make the roof is no longer available. Like they cannot remake it. I don't even know how they like keep it in shape.
It's like a cascading clock, if you're not sure how to visualize it.
Yeah, it's just a really gorgeous. And then if you get there early enough, which I thankfully did, before the film starts, you get some live music from an organist who kind of creepily just kind of winds his way up to the stage and plays some show tunes for the kind patrons who come to see the shows. And that was also a quite lovely experience as well.
Super fun. Concessions are good too. You can get like beer and stuff like that. One of my favorite memories of the Castro is when I was sitting in the front row with Sam Noland, and it was for Last Black Man in San Francisco, and there was somebody sitting next to me, like right next to me, and I didn't know who it was. We were in the very front row, and the movie ended, and then a guy came up and performed the song from the movie, and the guy sitting next to me walked up to the organ and started playing the score, and I realized that the entire time I've been sitting next to Emile Massieri, the composer, who composed the score of the film and has composed for other films like Minari, of course. And yeah, I mean, the Castro is just like it's a landmark, in so many ways. Glad you saw it. You were able to see it in person. And did you also go to Foreign Cinema?
I stopped in, so I checked out the Draft House. I didn't get to see a show there due to timing, but I did check it out. And then I went to the Foreign Cinema because I thought that was another theater. I was like, oh, is this like another independent theater just kind of wedged in these restaurants. I walked in, had like all these film memorabilia about, and they were like, "Hey, do you want a table for one?" I was like, "Table for one? I'm just here to see what movies are you showing?" They're like, "Oh no, this is a restaurant, but we show films on 35 millimeter." I was like, "Oh, hot dang! What movie are you showing tonight?" It's like, "Oh, we're actually not showing anything tonight, but tomorrow we're showing Moulin Rouge." And I was like, "Well, maybe another time."
I could just hear like in your voice, like as you say that, your face deflating. Not only is it not that day, but it's Moulin Rouge.
Yeah.
Your mortal enemy. I think the last movie I saw at foreign cinema was Bringing Up Baby. That was super cool. Oh. Like they play it like they project it out, and so yeah, while you're enjoying your food, you can watch some classic films like Moulin Rouge, of course, classic film.
Yeah.
You also went to the Fisherman's Wharf, right?
Yeah,
touristy, but that's always you got to do that.
And Pier 39, which is around there, and I got to see the sea lions. Yeah.
Oh, the sea lions are the best.
Yeah, I liked how like cranky they were and how inflated. I kind of felt for them towards the end of my trip when I'm all groggy and tired. Like there's several sea lions are just like flat on their backs, just laying about, just like. And I was like, I feel you, sea lions, I feel you.
Well, I'm glad you're groggy and tired, because that means you managed to fit in a lot of fun stuff. You had your first California burrito. Which is super cool.
I had several burritos in California, which is nice. Yeah.
Well, you had one in the Mission, I know. How did that? You said it was pretty filling? Yeah,
all the burritos I had were quite filling.
You had the one that we had one in the South Bay. I remember that.
Yeah, by that food truck. That was cool. That was actually probably one of my favorite ones, which I feel kind of bad about because you took me to all these like fancy restaurants and stuff, and that was nice. But
I didn't take you to a lot of fancy restaurants.
A few
for our rehearsal dinner, and then we went to like a beer place. The first day. Oh yeah, we went to like a little outside bistro.
Yeah. These are fancy to me, John.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. I kind of like the. I don't know if it was my favorite, but certainly one of my favorites was the food truck.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with the food trucks, man. Food trucks and taquerias are the way to go. What did you end up doing in Oakland? Because we didn't. I was in Napa for my mini honeymoon, so. I don't know what happened. You okay? Nobody.
Yeah, so I went to the zoo there because I wanted something that was kind of cheap, and accessible, and also
that's
just
the Oakland Zoo for you.
And I wanted something that I could just kind of like, dry out a bit, not have to do anything crazy. Mm-hmm. So I did that. Saw a lot of the fun animals there. And then I went to, I think it's called Jack London Square.
Yeah, that's a fun area.
Yeah, I went there, got some chicken waffles, I think is what the place was called. I went to that really, really cool bar that's like the oldest running operation in the Oakland area. I have to look up the title of it, but it's like Henry's First and Last, I think it's called.
I haven't been there.
Oh, you gotta check that out, man. If you ever are near Oakland, I mean, you are near Oakland, but if you ever find yourself in Oakland again, because it's like right in the middle of the city, and it's it's like made of an old pirate ship, and it's like built on a slant, and you go in, and there's like all these like hundreds of photographs from 100 or so years ago, like centuries old now.
Oh, I see. It's Henold's First and Last Chance Saloon, not Henry.
Yeah, it was a really, really cool place. And then I went to another brewery near there, and I forget the name of it, but they had Spaceballs, the IPA or something like that, and I got that. And I got to see the sunset and be like, all right, that's the end of my time in California.
Sounds pretty nice.
Time to head on back before this area might get dangerous.
Well, so yeah, I guess we can finish it out on this. What was your overall impression of California? Because I know we have plenty of listeners in California. We have a lot of listeners around here. We also have a lot of listeners in Pennsylvania, and I bet a bunch of them haven't even been out here before. Maybe not NorCal. So yeah, what was your impression?
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising to see what was similar and what was different. I mean, a lot of things are kind of the same just in terms of like being a metropolitan town, but certainly your drivers are a lot crazier.
Oh yeah.
Than in PA. You have a lot more foliage in terms of, I mean, certainly all the palm trees and all the different types of trees as opposed to just the traditional pine trees that we have.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention you were in LA for like a few hours too.
Yeah, I got to see my good buddy Matt Serafini, and I had my first In-N-Out burger. And I enjoyed the burger quite a bit. I wasn't crazy about the fries, which I learned from my Uber driver that following night, or that night actually,
which is very common.
Is a common experience. But you seem to be a little taken aback by that opinion.
You got to get them animal style. That's how you do it.
Okay, I have to learn my lesson, I guess.
Well, no, Matt should have told you. You should have been looking out for you. I'll reach out to him and tell him he failed.
I don't even know. I mean, maybe he hasn't had is it called animal style fries?
Animal style fries, yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise I enjoyed the In-N-Out. Yeah, I mean, I was certainly surprised by a number of Teslas that were in the area. I don't
know why that would be surprising.
Tesla's I was talking about this with my roommate. I don't know if I've seen a Tesla here. If I have, it's like very rare. But they're just like tons of them in California. They're all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, Tesla's headquartered in Fremont, which is like really, really close to where you were staying.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's very rare to see a Tesla around me, at least from my neck of the woods. But if I were to, just like kind of look out on the road at any given point in California, I'd see at least like 3 or 4 Teslas.
People with their cars out here. Surprising. They spend money on their cars. Oof.
But it just kind of added to the whole sort of alienness of it, where it's like things are similar but also different, especially because those cars look very weird. So yeah, it was it kind of added to the otherworldliness of it at times. But
I get that. Because I'm also, hey, look, I grew up in Virginia. I'm East Coast, all the way. I grew up. I had never been to California until I was 22, 23, and I felt exactly the same way. The funny thing is, though, you really get used to this place. You really do. It really just starts to become more and more normal as time goes on, and you sort of forget, how alien it can come off to other people, especially over the course of the pandemic. Like I haven't really hung out with a lot of people like visiting California, as you can imagine. And, it's interesting to kind of hear like, how does this place come off right now? And how much it's changed over the last few years even. So very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I found the city to be more welcoming than I anticipated, or at least the state I found to be more welcoming than I anticipated. It's very, like you said, very sunny, beautiful skies. Like there's not always blue, never a cloud in the sky as far as I could see. Like there's more weed smoke in the air than actual clouds. So that was that was quite a surprise and something that never failed to take me aback.
We really got some good weather out here, that's for sure.
Yeah, I got lucked out in that respect. Yeah, I was expecting to be a lot hotter, but thankfully it was pretty agreeable throughout my time.
Yeah, as soon as you left, it's in the 90s right now. It's like California, like, kind of let their gut kind of down. They're like, all right, he's gone. We don't have to be on our best behavior anymore.
Yeah, I guess so.
We got to meet for the first time. We got to hang out, and a long time coming for sure. But we didn't get to do the first Cinemaholics live IRL show with you and me.
Not for a lack of trying, though.
We wanted to, but we had the wedding stuff. But took, as you can imagine, it took the number one priority, huh?
Yeah, I mean, and I guess listeners would be interested to know that, at least longtime listeners would be interested to know that this was also the first time I met Maverick Hines.
My best man.
And the three of us were together at once. We were actually like, the way you set us up at the table, we were all like kind of diagonal one another. And so I feel like if you're fans, old time fans of the show, they'd be maybe geeking out because it's like
there were a few in the audience at the wedding. Yeah, they were. They had, of course, their Cinemaholic shirt under their nice button down tuxedo. They were like, "Wow, this is such a cool moment." Yeah.
It's like it's a meeting of the minds.
What's the opposite of a brain trust? You met my wife.
Yeah, I met your. Well, I had met her At least, I mean, not like in person, I guess, but
yeah.
But I mean, we'd spoken before, but only very briefly. Yeah, so it was very nice to meet her. I don't know if you want me to say her name or not on the air. So
I like to keep it mysterious.
Okay. Yeah, I respect that. Yeah, I got to meet your friends and the fellow groomsmen. They're all very fun guys.
We had a terrific time.
One guy in particular.
Everybody was a fan of Will Ashton. They were like, yeah, he was a little quiet, but then you just kind of like. You took people off by surprise, you know. You're like all of a sudden you were just like whip out something hilarious, and then it would be like, you know, wow, what a cool dude.
That's good. I appreciate that. Yeah, they're all very nice guys, and even one of them was trying to give us some helpful advice about the show.
Yeah, that's Parth. And
okay, well, I wasn't sure who we were allowed to say by name or not. I feel like
Parth would be okay with us saying his name because Parth really desperately wants to come onto the show, and we will oblige. We will have him on.
We won't. We were talking about which episode because we just asked him point blank which episode he wanted to be on. He had a clear answer. So as long as
he wasn't BSing us. He was like, no, I actually. But it is true. Like he reaches out to me whenever a movie comes out that he's really interested in. He seeks out our show for it. He doesn't listen every single week, which I feel like we have a lot of listeners like that. They download the episodes, but they pick the ones that they're most interested around the conversations for, right? And he's definitely one of those listeners. So. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be interested in men, so he's not listening to this right now. So I'll say this because I know he won't hear it. Parth, you're a good dude. Thanks for being such a good groomsman. I appreciate and love you. All right, I would never say that to his face, obviously.
Okay. What if I was going to say, what if he was just like, yeah, you know, I was just hanging out in this hotel room. I saw this weird movie called Men. I got to see you with the Cinemaholic guys. Oh, hey, they're talking about the wedding. I remember being there. Oh, wait, John had something to say to me. Oh.
What the heck? But yeah, it was a good time had by all, and I appreciate once again you being there and making the trip out here.
Of course,
it's not easy flying out, and it was your first flight ever. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was an honor to be invited, but it was certainly a great honor to be one of the groomsmen, even at last minute. So I was happy to be there for you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, your new call sign, since we're watching Top Gun Maverick, your call sign when we do the show could be the backup. Backup plan.
The plan B or whatever.
Plan A for Ashton.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
All right, I think that's a sign for us to say goodbye for now. Yeah. Any last words though?
I don't think so. I mean, you know, hopefully I'll be a little bit fresher next week.
When are you watching Top Gun Maverick?
That's a good question. So
might be a big hit. Might be hard to get tickets.
My screening was yesterday, and I was fittingly either in the air or in airport terminal when that screening was happening. So I didn't get a chance to see it, obviously, but I am planning to see it this weekend at some point. I'm going to try to see it. Would it be better to see in Dolby or in IMAX?
Good question. If it's AMC, I would say Dolby because it's still a pretty big screen, and I think the sound design would be better. Mm-hmm. Any other format, I think IMAX is the way to go. I think IMAX, I would definitely prioritize actually, because I feel like that's going to be way more rewarding. So okay, so it would probably be an AMC. So you're saying Dolby in that respect, but that's IMAX the thing. Is good? As long as it's not LIMAX, because sometimes AMC has.
Oh yeah, it's a LIMAX. Yeah. So.
Oh yeah, if it's LIMAX and Dolby, right. That was the thing. It's like if it's a real legit, like the screen is like the size of in a huge building, like yeah, do that. But if it's just sort of like it's 20% bigger, no, Dolby's good.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I was trying to convince Maverick to join us to talk about Top Gun Maverick.
It's a movie about him.
So I was asking him questions of like, are you planning to see it, all that? Because it's his namesake after all.
And he said no. He said never.
It seems unlikely, but I mean,
yeah. We could believe
listeners know that I tried at least to make that happen.
Exactly. All right. Well, we'll be back next week for that episode. Excited to talk about that movie with you. And until then, from the Internet California, I'm John Negroni.
And from the Internet Pennsylvania, I'm Washington.
See you next time.